Welcome to CareerCON's engineering panel. This afternoon, we have a collection of panelists with us from across disciplines from the College of Engineering and from across the country, and diversification of types of employers, types of backgrounds. And so thank you to all of you who are joining us this afternoon. I hope you've been enjoying CareerCON so far. And I know we will have more students who will continue to join us, but we are going to go ahead and get started since we are at the top of the hour. I'm Glenda Darrell, and I'm a career counselor in the Career Development Center here at NC State. And I work with engineering students. And so I specifically work with career counseling to sophomores and older in the College of Engineering. And so those who are attending, I look forward to working with you during your time here at NC State through the College of Engineering. Also, I'd like for you to meet Emily Hoey, and she is going to introduce herself and kind of give you an outline of the afternoon and how you can participate in this afternoon's panel.
Thank you, Glenda. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. I'm a graduate assistant in the Career Development Center, also getting to work with College of Engineering students, so I'm so excited that you are here. For today, you may notice we're not going to be using the chat, but we have set up the Q&A. So we have questions prepared for our wonderful panelists who have joined us, but we want to make sure that you are getting the most out of this experience. So as questions come up, feel free to drop them in the Q&A down here at the bottom of your Zoom screen on the right. And I'll be moderating that the whole time that we're meeting today. And as people throw in questions that you are also interested in, there is a thumbs up button, looks like a little like icon, and that will indicate what our most popular questions are, so we can make sure to voice those to our panelists as they come up. The last thing I want to add is that as each panelist introduces themselves, for the sake of time, I'm going to be throwing in a little bio about each of them so that you can reference those and access their contact info, including their LinkedIn profile, so that you can connect with them at a later time. Thank you all for joining us.
And yes, just as a reminder, students, that this is your opportunity to network. And as Ms. Bullock highlighted at the top of CareerCON this afternoon, that you need to reach out. You need to, as Emily just referenced, she would be putting their LinkedIn profile in the chat. And so making sure that you want to reach out and connect with our panelists on LinkedIn. And remember, when you send that LinkedIn connection, to add your note and make sure that you are telling them who you are and that you attended this event today, and maybe something that you got from something that they shared during the panel this afternoon. So without further, I would like to pose our first question to our panel. And this question I'm going to pose to Carmi and to Chandler. And what do you wish you had done differently in college?
Yes, thank you. So I am Carmine Papalardo. I did undergrad in civil engineering at NC State and master's in structural at UT Austin, and I work as a structural buildings engineer now. I definitely love my time in college, and I wouldn't say I would do a lot differently because I gained a lot of skills. I was involved with a lot of extracurricular groups that I learned valuable communication, teamwork, leadership skills that are so important for every day. I probably try to do more of an event or two within my specific discipline as well, I think, if I were to go back and redo it, because a lot of what we use in my field is what we use day to day. So I would say maybe I would just try to do an event within my discipline.
And hey, I'm Chandler Walker. I'm NC State class of 2007, a little while ago, in the nuclear engineering department. And when I think about what I would do differently, I went into state with some extra, they were called AP credits, maybe they still are. And so I had kind of a choice as to whether I wanted to fast track my major or to try to get more than one. And so I ended up going with a triple major, which like sounds very cool and impressive, you'd think. But didn't really do anything to help me with my career. I don't want to discourage those of you going for double majors, but if I had done it a little differently, I might have tried maybe to get, an advanced degree, maybe a master's in addition to an undergrad in a shorter amount of time. But that was honestly a very sort of specific thing. I guess it's just kind of a note that while there's probably some use in thinking about the extra like challenges you put for yourself and which one of those challenges are going to benefit you the most when you're trying to get a job. Not that there's anything wrong with education for its own sake too. Another thing I wish I'd done more is I think everybody attending this panel is doing a better job than I did in college about looking forward to thinking about how to maximize my career chances. Everything turned out okay for me, which is probably why I got invited onto this panel. But I can tell you, senior year was a nail biter where I had to, I was working at a sandwich shop and hoping an engineering job would materialize. And it was about a week before I graduated that I got the job offer. And I really had to think about, do I quit my job at the sandwich shop or do I have to keep that door open until I get this engineering thing figured out? So I wish I'd gone to more career cons back in my experience in college. So congrats on you. You're ahead of 20-year-old Chandler already.
Well, Chandler, thank you for that encouragement of our students to engage in the resources that are here for them on our campus. And CareerCON is just one example of the many resources that you can tap into. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about, maybe what you're doing now and how much of what you learned in college do you use in your job? And so if I could get William and Fatima to chime in on that.
Yeah, so my name is Will Mullen. I'm a chemical engineer from NC State class 2013. I graduated and moved to Texas and Georgia, and now I'm in Charlotte working for Nation Ford Chemical. We do lots of toll manufacturing, so other companies come to us and we make stuff for them. There's a lot of stuff we obviously did in the engineering curriculum for chemical, and a lot of it dealt with learning the basics of a lot of the procedures and equipment we would see when we got in the field or when you started doing any sort of consulting. And that's fine, but getting the understanding on the background and then taking it and applying it in the real world, it's a whole different concept. The reactors run differently, separation technologies, pumps, anything, it all runs so much different in the field. And getting that experience doing it in the field, but also having that background understanding why it's doing what it's doing. I mean, that was invaluable having that from NC State. So really taking every advantage you can in coursework to learn about those fundamentals and taking them in well is critical. It may seem like, oh, I'm never going to use this at the time, but at some point in the future, it does tend to pop up. It may be 20 years down the road and you got to go look it up in a textbook again, but it's there, it's in your head. You just kind of got to refresh it a little bit.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fatima Fatajo. I double majored in electrical and computer engineering at NC State, class of 2017. Part of my coursework that I use today would be, I would say, the programming languages. Currently, I work as a software engineer for John Deere, but I'm currently in Des Moines, Iowa for the time being. Part of what I use is the languages, so C, Java, and MATLAB. John Deere software is a lot in model-based software development, which is exclusively through MATLAB. So I would say the technical languages I learned in terms of software and coding, as well as understanding how to read schematics through my freshman and sophomore level classes. And another thing that I still use today, which didn't directly come from my coursework, but came from my time at the Career Center as a career ambassador, was networking. working in a big office, especially someone that is an entry-level engineer, one of the best things you have is your networking capabilities, how to get mentors that are maybe a level grade or two above you to kind of teach you the ropes, and also like building that network so that when you need something, when you need help, you have people that you can turn to, you can confide to, that can kind of guide you and point you to the right person to help you figure out a project or something like that.
Thank you, Fatima, and thank you for citing your time here in the Career Development Center, and just an encouragement for those who are in need of building some of those skills, possibly, that there are opportunities here in the Career Development Center, as well as across the College of Engineering and across campus to do that. And so we had a question during the main session at noon that I would like to pose to Julius and to Evan. And we had someone ask the question about how they should best approach coding in the interview process and what their expectations might be.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start it off. Hi guys, my name is Julius Blue, and I was part of NC State electrical engineering class of 2017, and I now work at Duke Energy as an electrical engineer. So the coding during the interview was interesting for me because during my sophomore year, I had an interview with Cisco, and out of the blue, they asked me a coding question, and it was actually quite difficult for me to work through, and I didn't get the answer correct. But a lot of times these recruiters and engineers that are interviewing you, they already know kind of where your coursework is and probably what your level should be. So a lot of times they just want to see how you really think through the problem. And also the biggest thing with engineering, are you honest? One of the big things where I work at Duke Energy is safety. You don't want to just kind of like try to stumble through the problem and we clearly know you don't know what you're doing and you're kind of guessing at it. If you really don't understand what you're doing, just simply say, hey, I'm not sure, or I'm not knowledgeable on the topic, but you can kind of redirect, especially when it comes to coding. Hey, I might not know C, but I know Python or another language, and I can understand the process, but I don't know exactly how to code it out. And a lot of times they'll be very sympathetic for you. But the biggest thing, like I said, is just be honest. And I think that's really get you a long way.
Yeah, I would echo all of that. And then add, the person interviewing you is interviewing you to be on their team, most likely, or as someone that they would work with. So showing, maybe you don't know the answer, or maybe you're stumbling through it, but trying to find other things that you can get through, like how you would test it or how you could break the problem down further. A lot of the times, the people doing the interviews know this, this isn't an IDE. They're not so worried about syntax so much. So I wouldn't get caught up in small stuff. Work on solving the problem the best you can, and talking about it, being verbal and saying everything you're thinking about doing, what would work, what wouldn't work, those sorts of things, to try and just work through the problem.
Okay. Thank you for participating in that. And just any other of our other panelists have anything to add on that question, since that was a question that we had gotten from students?
Hey, Emma Moore. I graduated just last May in industrial engineering and English. I'm in Austin now, working for a semiconductor manufacturing company. I just really wanted to add that being honest it's really important. You're going to be 21, 22 years old. You're not expected to know everything and to know how to do everything. So it's thought process, it's honesty, it's showing that you want to learn. Like, oh, you guys do it with this program, but I know this program, but I think I can transfer these skills well into learning that and pick it up really quickly. So just showing that you're open to learning is really important, because you're young, it's your first job. You don't have to know everything.
Thank you for that assurance there, Emma. So now I'd like to pause just a second and see, Emily, do we have any questions in the Q&A yet for our panel?
Yes, so Andrew was wondering if you could elaborate on what constitutes the difference between knowing and interacting with someone in a professional environment or otherwise versus networking with them.
Okay. Would one of our panelists want to address that question?
I can. This is Julius. One of the things I kind of compare it to is like having friends. You have those friends that you kind of just hang out with from time to time. A lot of people might know your name. And then you also have those really good friends where you have deep connections. And when it comes to networking, that's one of the biggest things I had to learn. A lot of people can know your name and maybe even know your backstory, but you don't have a deep connection with them or any kind of connection. And that's the biggest thing when it comes to networking. And that might be, taking the extra effort and having more conversations with them, more in-depth conversations with them, like just trying to be a very genuine person. I wouldn't recommend just going and try to meet or be friends with someone just because maybe they have a higher up position or they're in the field you want. A lot of times people can kind of feel if you're a genuine person. So that's the best thing. Just try to have genuine relationships with people.
I saw Carmi nodding her head. Did you have something to add, Carmi?
I just wanted to go off. Being genuine is so important in making these relationships. You're going to be working hand in hand. And for us, we're working with architects, contractors, owners. We want them to trust us. And if we're genuine to them, it goes a long way and they can feel it and see it, and they're going to want to work with us again. So I think that's a great point that Julius made there.
Okay. So for Will and for Emma, what skills, whether it be engineering or soft skills, transferable skills, would you recommend engineering students developing to best prepare for their career?
I can go first. So learning how to talk to people and send emails and like interact with people in a professional setting, I think is really important. And it's not something that you have to like jump in first summer after freshman year, interning in your career field, know everything right away to be able to do that too. You can get that from interacting with professors, joining professional organizations like the Career Ambassadors or something within your college and interacting with the mentors there, or jobs. My last semester, I worked as I worked doing data entry for bandwidth on Centennial campus, and like that wasn't what I wanted to do, but you still get a feel for office dynamics and how to interact with people who are kind of above you in the business. And so you get comfortable talking with employers, with recruiters, doing things like that, so that when you go into these interviews and you're writing these resumes and cover letters and sending emails to recruiting managers, you sound confident and you can articulate yourself well to be able to really showcase your skills. And I think that's really important. I mean, because like I mentioned, even engineering skills, you can learn a lot of that on the job, and they kind of expect a certain amount of background there, but these soft skills like that, you can really wow an employer.
I will definitely second that. The ability to communicate to people of very different backgrounds, because there's going to be a lot of very different backgrounds in the real world there, is critical. And being able to communicate what needs to be communicated very clearly and quickly is important as well, especially when you're communicating to people higher up. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff going on. They need to hear this, this, and this, and then move on to the next thing. And you need to make sure you can get it across clearly and quickly to them so they can get what they need to move on. And then I would also add that the ability to learn very, very quickly on any topic really is important. One of the natures of what we do as engineers is we solve problems, and you never know what the problem is going to be that pops up. It could be something that has no relation to what you've done in the past. It could be something that is related to what you've done in the past, but being able to look up information, find things out, and learn fast really helps you stand out compared to a lot of other people that wouldn't necessarily be able to do that.
Thank you for that. So I would like to now look to Chandler and to Evan, and think about you were talking about communicating and building those relationships. So how does one build confidence to speak with employers?
Sure. Excuse me. Um, for me, I would literally go to the people that intimidated me most, and I would ask them to interview me. Get friendly with them, be nice, and then just ask, say like, hey, can we do a 15, 30-minute interview? And I'm usually intimidated by these people, and they'd usually say, yeah, not this week, but maybe next. And then literally going through that process of putting myself through that very stressful experience of being intimidated by someone and interviewing with them. And then I found that I would have more confidence going into speaking to companies like Google and Microsoft during my interviews. And I think that's it. And also just preparing yourself. So, reading what the job description is, doing any hacker ranks or other things that you might know would improve your chances of success. And just trying to remain, be who you are and honesty and being true to that inside.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Evan said. I think if the question is how do you get more comfortable with these uncomfortable actual discussions, yeah, it's practice makes perfect. You put yourself in enough situations and you start to get a little bit better at it. It can still make you nervous. So get some practice with that, whether it's with intimidating people like Evan likes to find, or if just putting yourself out there with a lot of different interviews until it doesn't stop to bug you too much. I will add that so sometimes just like the in-person talking is the scary part. There's a lot of ways to communicate these days, though. And I think I, would be receptive if somebody who wanted a job at Westinghouse wrote me like a very specific email. And that gives you an opportunity to take as much time as you want to say exactly what you want to say. So yeah, you can either be brave and learn to do it, or you could be cowardly, but spend a lot of time writing an email and it still might work because that can work too. So I hope that gives you some ideas.
So Chandler has just invited you, if you are interested in Westinghouse or learning about his career path, to write him a thoughtful email. Thank you both for that. And I would like to encourage everyone in building out your skill set in taking what Evan and Chandler said to heart. And you'll notice a common theme from what both of them said. Both of them were putting themselves out there and putting themselves in uncomfortable situations and building that confidence. And so as we build our confidence, of course, our goal coming through college is to land an internship, hopefully while we're in college, but land that postgraduate employment. And so if I could ask Fatima and Emma to tell us how you found your first job.
So I'll go first. Fatima, software engineer, John Deere. I found this current job through a friend. In my senior design class, I had a colleague that had interned for John Deere in the past and had glowing recommendations. So when they came to the career fair, the fall, about a year before I graduated, I went there and I spoke to them. Before that, some of the tips and tricks I learned from the career fair was like research the company and try to make sure that as you approach a recruiter, you have some kind of knowledge about the company that you can get the conversation started, as well as like a 20-30 second elevator pitch to introduce yourself and kind of like what you bring, hand your resume, and then talk about your experiences, what your strengths are, and stuff like that. I spoke to them at the career fair. I got invited for an interview the next day. I went in and thankfully it went well. And after that, about 2 weeks later, they invited me over to headquarters for a full day interview with the other applicants. And again, doing your homework about the company, about what positions they currently have open, and how your experiences from your resume fit in with what they're looking for that specific position. So you come in with knowledge and preparation to make sure you're putting your best foot forward as you're competing with all these different applicants. So in summary, it was through a friend that had a glowing recommendations, but at the same time, I also had other companies that I knew were coming to the career fair that I kind of also talked to, so that I didn't put all my eggs in one basket, but actually had top 3 companies that I would love to work for. And I interviewed with all of them, and thankfully, I got one in my top 3.
So, actually, on the flip side of that, I had never heard of it. Was Cypress Semiconductor Corporation. We're now Infineon. We merged right after I joined. Never heard of them. Never been to Austin. Didn't know anybody in the semiconductor industry. So I started applying for jobs September, October of my senior year. And I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do. So I was researching the company, I was tailoring my resume, I was writing cover letters. I kept everything in a big spreadsheet, and I ended up applying to 130 jobs all over the country in a bunch of different areas, because the one thing about industrial engineering is that everyone needs industrial engineers. So I guess the field was a little more open in that regard, which helps because you can do whatever you really want to do. But I guess it could also hurt because you're not going to know someone everywhere you go look, and it's just more diverse. So you don't have that same community that maybe a smaller field would have. But I applied to 130 jobs. My current job was my 130th application, and my manager actually called me 45 minutes after I submitted my application, asking for a phone interview. I kind of make fun of him about it now. He didn't realize it was that soon, but yeah, so it kind of all moved really fast after that. But I spent a lot of time getting kind of discouraged because I thought I was doing everything that I was supposed to do. So I think something that I didn't do that I wish I had was go to more career fairs. So like Fatima had said, that's where she kind of connected with her employer. And I went to one my sophomore year, and then I didn't go to any more until my second senior year. And I kind of wish I had, because I would have gotten to know more people in the field, maybe seen the same recruiters a couple years in a row, and it might have been a lot easier. I did make some contacts and had some leads from a women in STEM networking event that I went to my last semester. Ultimately went with this job, but yeah, that's my story. So just keeping organized, doing your cover letters when it's important, tailoring your resume, making sure you're doing that research is what's really important, I think.
Thank you both for sharing that. And for those who attended our first session with our hiring managers, you heard directly from hiring managers that what Fatima and Emma shared is exactly what employers are looking for, in looking for that customized resume, and those students who come to the interview prepared and using the resources, as they both tested to the career fairs that you have access to on campus, is one aspect of your job search that you can interact with employers and get to know a diverse group of employers. So Emily, do we have any questions that have come up in the Q&A?
Yes, we've had a lot of really great questions start popping up in here. But a very popular one is from Timothy, asking the panelists if they would mind sharing some of their stories or experiences about graduating with one degree, but then realizing that you wanted to do another kind of engineering instead.
Okay, anyone like to address that?
I can address it. So even I know the question, but I graduated with an electrical engineering degree, but I actually went to the IT field. I was a co-op at Duke Energy, and I encourage anyone if they have the ability to co-op. It's a great opportunity. It really makes it a whole lot easier to get a job. But I moved into the IT field just due to getting a job around my parents. But I knew IT was something that I did not truly want to do for the long term. So that's where I really started learning about networking because I was like, hey, I'm in a power company. I know they have plenty of electrical engineers. I just need to figure out how to get to that level. And basically, what I went out to do, you don't have to go back to school to necessarily make your degree say whatever field you want to be in. You just really start networking and recruiting and getting out and talking with people that's in that field. And like a lot of everyone said, a lot of this stuff you learn on the job. So at Duke Energy, I met mechanical engineers, aerospace engineers, agricultural engineers, a wide variety of engineers doing a lot of electrical engineering jobs. And it's just basically because they learned on the job. So my biggest thing, I really wouldn't sweat going back and trying to get a different degree or may move and try to get more experience in a different field. Really just trying to get your foot in the door and networking with people that are in that field that you want to be in. And that could be like someone said, writing an email, hopefully reach out to someone at a company. And a lot of people are very receptive when you reach out. And, that's encouraging for us to want to, talk about our careers. Everyone likes talking about themselves. So I'll say networking will be the biggest thing and not really worried about, I guess, trying to go back and get another degree just so it says it on it.
Okay. Thank you, Julius. That sounds like a personal experience. What other questions are students asking, Emily?
Sure. Another great one is from Sterling asking for in the panelist experience, what's a good way to make yourself stand out to employers when applying or interviewing for engineering positions? What is most impressive?
Okay. Let's have probably about two of our panelists address this because you come from different perspectives.
I'll go ahead and say experience is going to be the biggest thing. And it's kind of intimidating because when you go to a career fair as a sophomore or a freshman, everyone wants someone with a year or two experience, and it's like, well, how am I going to have a year or two experience? I'm a freshman. But like I said, going through the co-op experience and going and getting internships, that really, really makes you stand out. And I would say probably make you stand out above grades or really a lot of other things. And if I had to pick something else, I'll stand out besides just experience, probably activities and leadership experience. Employers love leaders and people that can communicate and that they know they are able to communicate with people with various backgrounds and everything. Those are two biggest things.
I would jump on that one as well. Having those other experiences that you can talk about and fluently talk about them really makes you stand out because you got a lot of people you're competing against that have great GPAs, that have similar backgrounds. A lot of people have had similar internship experiences as well. And being able to show, hey, I've got these experiences doing this club or this activity or this leadership program, it really makes you stand out better because you're not just focusing on the engineering side of the school, the academics. You're focusing on developing your interpersonal communication skills and things like that, which in any business is really important to have.
I know you said too, but I just want to jump on super quickly. Don't be afraid to brag on yourself. I feel like a lot of people are uncomfortable talking themselves up and hyping themselves up, but no one knows what you can do better than yourself. So don't just say, I had experience in this, this, and this. Say, I used this phrase in my interview. I said, this is what I did during my co-op, and I think that will translate well into these aspects of the job that we've already talked about. So be your own best advocate, really, I think is really important as well. People get nervous, but I think just show yourself off, brag on yourself.
Thank you. Another question, Emily. You said there were some great questions coming from students.
Yes. Yeah. On that topic of interviewing and meeting with employers, Nina was asking if there's ever been a moment when you realized that there was something, a skill, an inclination, a way of looking at things that the interviewer really valued and you hadn't considered marketable. If so, what was it? And did you leverage it moving forward?
Someone want to answer Nina's question? Carmi?
I'll go, yes. I actually, so when I was, for my first job, I went to the career fair. And actually the day before that, there was a session held in our building for our department from Air the company. And my boss now was the one presenting. He presented on the Chongqing skyscraper. And so the next day when I went to the career fair, that was the first thing I brought up was that he talked about Chongqing skyscraper, and I was in the session. And so that was something that I could just stand out from the other people that had already been looking and listening. And I am so sorry. What I was going to say was that when you're trying to, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me? It seems like it's cutting out.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So just making that connection and relating it back to what it was. So I'm so sorry, I forgot what the question was from Nina.
Nina was asking about something that an interviewer really valued and how you leverage that moving forward.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. So what I had thought, I had a lot of extracurricular activities and leadership, and I thought that a lot of the questions were going to be asked for kind of problem solving, how you attack different things. But in the interview, it was purely technical, and it was technical question after technical question. So once I realized that that was the skill set that was most important, then I honed in on that. And I talked about all of my classes and core work and experiences in senior design, and I really honed in on that. And so be confident in what you've done in your classes, because all your experiences will come out in different questions that they may ask. So make sure to talk about all of those. And if you do get that feel that they're asking that, then go just hone in on that. And that's what they're looking for.
Did someone else want to chime in on that?
For me, I would say personal projects. I was and still am super interested in entrepreneurship. I've built and published lots of different applications, doing all sorts of fun and crazy things, and just showing those off to employers, even if it's something that you're like, oh, this, like I built a crowdsourced timer app, which allowed people to time something and then compare it to how long they've timed other things. And which has nothing to do with any job I ever applied to, but that's a really awesome tool to show that I solved the problem. It wasn't a real problem, but I solved the problem and built an app with a backend that could do everything that they would probably want out of a real product. So brag on that.
Thank you. And I think that's a great example to our students in having something to talk about in the interview. And so I want to ask our panelists, we have Emma, who graduated in May 2020, and we have students who are with us today, I'm sure, who are getting ready to graduate here in May into an economic situation that when you started college, you did not foresee. And so I'd be interested in if maybe Chandler and Carmi, possibly, if you could share about how your company or your industry has been impacted by the pandemic, and what our new graduates should keep in mind and be aware of going into this workplace.
Sure. I'll start. Westinghouse blessedly is writing out the sort of changes that are associated with the pandemic pretty okay. We're mostly, doing engineering support work from a computer. And so the largest thing is that we shut the office down and have all the employees working from home. The secret reason why Westinghouse is a little more okay with that is they've been trying to downsize their office space anyway to adapt to a more sort of flexible work from home environment. And now they have like a great excuse to force all their employees to do it. But I think that that story is going to be like the story of what's going on with businesses in this decade. Is like a lot of businesses that didn't think they could work remotely will now understand that they can and that there's benefits to it, or they'll see the drawbacks of it too, you know. And so I think there's a lot of learning to be happening from that. The for my specific job, one of the things that my role does is travel to other countries for some consultations. And so that's been a weird one for me. We're still doing those sort of consultations, but I'm doing them on Shanghai time sometimes. And so that's rough, but you learn to adapt to it and stuff like that. I think coming out of the pandemic, we're all going to look at telecommuting a little bit differently. I think there was probably, and it really depends on the culture of your company, but there was probably some like scratching their head about how do we make sure people are really doing good work if they're working from home, or other, you know, concerns like that. And I think it's not going to be seen as something where like, this is how lazy people are trying to get away with stuff, right? It's going to be, no, it turns out you can do a lot of your work this way too. So I will say that aspect of the pandemic is just really revealing how work can be done. And I think it's going to raise some questions, like if you want to work for this company, do you need to live in the same city as this company? And if the answer is no, that's going to open up choices for everybody. So that's my perspective.
Thank you, Chandler.
Yeah, so my company, how we responded to the pandemic, last March, mid-March, we switched to working from home. So we all already had our own laptops anyway, but our office gave us, or the company gave us some money to purchase computers, good laptops, and just a setup station to be most productive at your home. And so it's actually led to a lot of interesting opportunities, because instead of just working with people right next to you in your office, I've been able to work with people all over our region. And I feel like just part of that team, because we'll just get on Microsoft Teams call and draw out on the whiteboard. We're really learning how to use all the functions there. I also find it really cool our company continued our internship program. Well, I know a lot of others may have had to cancel it or cut it short, but we had all our interns and we actually let them connect everyone all over the region. So we had 120 people and broke them up into groups, and each of them got to do real life scenario situations. And then we had our biggest grad class join us in September this year. And I've been talking to all of them to get their feel on it. And it is definitely weird because you don't get the in-person teaching experience when you're sitting right next to someone at the desk, and that's very valuable. But it is also unique because you can, we're really trying to utilize video calls and checking base with each other more often so people don't feel as alone, and so that I feel really welcomed. So I think in the future there might be a balance between working from home and going to the office, because there's definitely positives about both.
Okay, thank you for your candidness there. Other questions from the Q&A, Emily? What are students asking about?
Yes, so Jen brought up a great point about asking about any regrets that you might have about your particular field of engineering and wishing that you might have chosen something else. And in those cases, do you recommend going to graduate school or making a career shift into a different field?
Anyone want to share their personal thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. I was very torn when I graduated as to what I wanted to do. I did chemical engineering, but I had a very, very strong interest in communications and actually some industrial engineering background stuff. And so I was concerned about, am I going to be able to go in a field that is actually something that I'm passionate about, something I can enjoy doing, something that feels worthwhile to me. And over time, I jumped into my first company. I didn't really know anything about them. It was Praxair. They do air separation, making nitrogen, oxygen, argon from air. And it's not something I would ever consider myself passionate about. But at the same time, like, I was with a really great team of people, and I learned that the people that I'm around really make the biggest impact as far as, you know, how I'm feeling about the organization I'm with and whether I feel like I'm growing or not, especially having a great boss. That is incredibly important. And I was building skills the entire time. And this actually addresses some of the questions I've seen in the Q&A too, about how to stand out and how to start in one field and maybe go to another, is that you start somewhere, just pick something. It doesn't have to be the perfect opportunity right out of school, but it's something that allows you to build a background in your field. Because eventually, and I think Chandler mentioned this too, is you're going to have the experience that you need to get those jobs that people are asking for experience in. And so if you've got the experience and you can talk about something, you can go reference something, even if it's not specifically what this new job may be or your dream job may be, the recruiter will be like, hey, you know, I can kind of picture that in my mind that this person would use that experience to then do well in the role that I have for them. So having the ability to learn and start somewhere and just take in that information and just start doing something, keep your options open. I think we mentioned this in the initial career program here, but keeping your LinkedIn updated, keeping your options on there, keep your experience on there so recruiters can reach out and find you. That's really important. And just keep your eyes open, because at some point something good is going to come along. And if you've got a really good skill set built up to address that and apply for it, then you've got yourself in a good position.
So I want to touch base on that a little. So the position I'm in right now, I wouldn't say like I would like to go back and change it, but when I was graduating, this is not where I imagined I will be. When I was graduating, I wanted to work with biomedical companies, somewhere geared towards biomedical engineering. But when I started learning about companies and their values, John Deere really, really impressed me. And they had an engineer rotational program that's like a 2-year, 8 months, 3 rotations to try different aspects of either engineering, industrial engineering, like marketing. You can go outside of engineering. It just gives you an opportunity to try something that you might not otherwise be interested in. And like Will mentioned, keeping your options open. As an entry engineer, you don't want to like narrow yourself to I just want to do this the entire time, but you should have an open mind. And these kinds of programs allow you to like take slices of it without having like a huge risk, like you are committing yourself 2 years, 3 years to this role. And through that, I found that like I really liked software, even though in school I really hated it. I hated my programming classes because they were super, super difficult. But through the engineering program, through the culture and the team that I rotated through, I saw that they were people that I really would like to work with, and the managers are really good. And it may not be where I thought I wanted to be, but it's definitely ended up where I wanted to be, and I was pretty content with that.
Thank you for your contribution there. And so, wanting to ask, speaking of not being where you thought you might want to be, what is something that you wish someone had told you as you were beginning your first job? And so, I'm going to kind of pitch this to Emma, who is in her first job right now, and to Julius, who has been in the workplace for a while. What is something you wish someone had told you when you went to your first job?
Emma, if you want to go first.
You can go ahead.
Okay. So basically, don't try to solve all your problems on day one. When I kind of look at this panel, I saw we have 2 principal engineers here, and we have some people that are newer, and then we have some people that have like middle range experience. And going into engineering, I thought, hey, I want to start today, and I'm just going to be able to reinvent the rocket ship. But I had to take a step back and understand I couldn't perform at the same level as the principal engineers or the more senior individuals. Even if I had the same intelligence, there was still a certain level of experience that you had to have to really gain the knowledge and understand what you're clearly doing. So really just to take a step back and don't try and conquer it all at once. And also, when I came to Duke Energy full time, I came through an IT rotational program. And like I said, I was just always looking for, hey, I want to have that specific job that I know I've been dreaming of. And I really wasn't taking the time to actually enjoy the current job that I was in and develop skills from those jobs. And I was eventually able to land a role in the area that I wanted. But when I take a step back and reflect on it, I spent so much time being miserable in those positions that I didn't really gain everything I could from there. And that's being the communication experience, because I was in a leadership role, just the experience of, honestly, as an adult in the workforce, you want to do things that you don't like. So gaining experience doing things I didn't really like. So like I said, my main thing, I just wish someone was like, hey, Julius, I understand you want to be the best engineer in the world, but you're not gonna be able to do it in your first day or even your first year here.
So I guess my biggest, I've got a couple things that I'm thinking of, and one of those is just to give yourself grace. This is new, it's scary, it's exciting. You've got a lot of things going on. You have a lot of changes in your life. In, I guess, 6 months, I graduated college, started a new job, moved to Austin on my own. We have no family down here. I got engaged. I got married 2 months later because we needed to get my husband on my health insurance because he moved with me and hasn't been able to find a job. And it's stressful. It's hard, especially right now, but give yourself grace, just do the best you can, take the time for yourself, do what's best for you, but also learn that, it's okay to say, I don't know, when someone asks you a question. It's okay to ask for help from your team, outside of your team. These people, they hired you because they saw your potential. So they really want to help you live up to that. It's okay. I've got a lot of advice I'm thinking of. It's okay, if you start a job and you're like, this is fine, this is okay, it's not what I want to do forever. The culture of starting a job when you're 20 and working it until you retire at 65, it's just not around anymore. So that's okay, take everything as it is. This is a great first experience. Do I see myself working in the semiconductor industry for the next 35, 40 years? No. I mean, there are a lot of other things I want to do, but this is a fantastic job. It's a fantastic first job. It's giving me a ton of experience and I really enjoy doing it now. So that's, that's okay. And just recently, I had someone ask me, hey, we're trying to maybe get this new tool to replace this old one, and can you like run these few analyses to see if it would be beneficial to make this change? And I did, and the answer was no. And I really didn't want to tell him that. I was like, oh, I'm the newest engineer, this is my module, he's coming to me to ask me this question, and yeah, it sounds like it would be beneficial, but the numbers just aren't saying it. So I went to my mentor and I was like, I don't know what to tell him. Like, the answer is no. And he goes, that's okay. No is an answer. You can tell him that. So, just, I guess, all of that all in one. I haven't talked to a lot of people about this because, like I said, we're down here by ourselves, but just take everything as it is, as a learning experience. The good and the bad, the stressful, it'll all come together the way it's supposed to.
Thank you for that. Emily, as we are closing in on the hour, what other question do we have from students?
Sure. I see our awesome panelists are responding to people, giving some written feedback too. So definitely check out the answer tab of the Q&A to see some of those specific questions. We did have a question that asks about how employers require us to apply online through their websites, and sometimes it can feel as though the application isn't even looked at. So any advice from our panelists on how to make these written applications stand out before the interview so they have a better chance of moving forward to the interview process?
Yes. Anyone have insight?
I would say just kind of working in the computer realm, a lot of times you can kind of look for the positions and they have buzzwords, especially in the computer science, electrical engineering realm. A lot of people like the terms DevOps, learning thinking, and they really just picking things off your resume through an automated system. So just kind of really getting and understanding your field and that position you're applying for, and then figuring out those buzzwords, that will help a whole lot when it comes through like actually applying online. And secondly, when I would go to the career fair, I would make sure I'll have someone to talk to. So if a recruiter told me, hey, go apply online, I usually get her email and her work information, and I'll follow up with that. Or a lot of times they'll follow up with you if they know that you're very serious. So really just having some kind of inside connection to when you apply. Because like you said, a lot of times I'm the same way. Recently, I would try to switch jobs, and I sent out dozens of applications. And honestly, sometimes I got no's within the first hour. So I was like, well, I know no one actually read my application in the first hour of me applying, especially at larger corporations. But like I said, I think those buzzwords and the computer kind of sorting through your resumes really is a big thing nowadays.
So,
Who else? Evan?
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the challenges I did was I would give someone I hadn't met my resume, ask them to read it in 10 seconds, and then tell me what they knew about me. And if my best experience didn't come out of there, I reformatted my resume. And I literally built different resumes for different jobs. And it took a lot of time, but I think that it's valuable, especially at like career fairs where you're handing out resumes. I mean, they're going to flip through a stack and they have maybe a little more in 10 seconds, maybe less. So it's a good test to see if a stranger can point out your best experience. I don't know if it actually works, but that's what I did.
Thanks, Evan. Fatima, you were going to add something?
yeah, I wanted to add to kind of what Julia said, knowing those recruiters and building the relationship with. And I think most people make a mistake. It's like they only come to the career fair when they're looking for a job. But usually with NC State and Engineering Career Fair, it's the same recruiters that are kind of like assigned to that region. So it's usually the same people that come year after year. So even if you're not looking for a job right now, like your sophomore year, freshman year, you can go kind of as practice and start building that rapport with those recruiters so that when it is time for you to look for a job, when you go speak to them, like they've had some interaction with you, they know your name, and then mention that you've also applied online. And like Julius mentioned, look at the objectives of what they're looking for and try to make sure that your resume paints that story, that you have the skill set. And if you don't, look for transferable skills that would be useful with the bullet items they have listed. That way, not only do they connect a name to a face because they've been interacting with you for the past few years, but then they can go in specifically and look at your resume, and you will also have that end of the equation also matched up to put your best foot forward so that your strengths could come out and showcase that you are a strong applicant.
Thank you. I hope that all the students were paying attention to all of your responses, in how they can best put themselves forward. So let's take one last question, Emily.
Sure. So there is another great one from Sterling asking about how engineering degrees can be applied to a broad array of industries. So any advice from the panelists about how to find your specific field or industry that you're interested in or passionate about within the confines of those degrees?
I guess just really quickly, I gotta say it's kind of similar to how after 6 months your GPA really doesn't matter. It feels like it does, but quickly thereafter it's not what's most important. It's kind of the same thing. What's most important, especially for switching into a non-engineering field, and it's been said before, is the transferable skills. So your degree, your background in school, especially within a year of graduating, isn't necessarily going to be the most important thing. The most important thing is going to be able to articulate the skills that you've learned in the workforce that you think can transfer over to this new field. So being able to advocate for yourself and saying, in this completely unrelated thing, I learned how to do this, this, and this is what my company valued, and here's how I think I can apply it to the new job.
Okay. Anyone have a closing comment on that question?
Hey, this is Chandler. I just want to emphasize how super duper common it is for you to take a different path a few years into your career. When you look at the people that work at my job, it's not all just nuclear engineers that are working at nuclear engineering jobs. It's industrial engineers that decided to take some nuclear stuff, or it's meteorologists that want to be a project manager. Like, we come from all over the place. And when I think about the people that started at the same time of me, all the directions that we've gone. And so that's just, I wouldn't put so much pressure then on picking the perfect job for the rest of your life, because the sort of job that's going to appeal to you might not even be apparent to you until you started doing some jobs that you hate. So I would emphasize getting your foot in the door into a company, and that's really going to open the doors so that you can figure out, you know what, I really like training, or I really like management or project management, or I really super just like the very narrow focus of my engineer. Like, that's okay too. But I just don't put so much pressure on you to make that decision when you're 19 years old. It's so common to change your mind in 3 years or every 3 years.
Thank you. So we are at the hour, and so I would like to thank our panelists again for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon, for being candid in your answers and your responses, and answering students' questions in the Q&A. And thank you for students for coming out this afternoon and participating. And know that as you were told from the beginning of the afternoon, that all of the participants this afternoon have been entered in a drawing, and so you will receive an email if you have won one of the prizes of the gift cards or the grand prize of the AirPods. So stay tuned to your email to see if you are one of those lucky winners. Thank you, panelists, and thank you for making yourself available to our current engineering students. And I do hope that our students will take advantage of this opportunity in networking with you and learning from you. So thank you again very much. And it was very nice to meet you. I look forward to hopefully interacting again in the future. Take care. And thanks for coming out to CareerCON.